Don't doubt me. Rush Limbaugh, emitting vocal vibrations coast to coast all across the fruited plain behind the golden EIB microphone. Great to have you back, my friends. Telephone number if you want to be on the program, and we will get to your phone calls in this busy broadcast hour. 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. So I was just watching CNN during the break. And Suzanne Malveaux is the anchor, and they got their reporter on the streets of Chicago covering the strike. And she has this serious and pained look on her face. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, terrible strike, students. And she throws to this reporter, I don't know his name, he says, "Well, I hope they get this thing settled fast, Suzanne. No one wants 400,000 kids on the streets of Chicago during the daytime and not in schools. No one wants 400,000 kids on the streets of Chicago. I don't know what they do in the summer. I've never understood it. No one wants 400,000 kids on the streets in Chicago." Some polling data, October 24th, 1980. Because I heard Britt Hume today say, by the way, folks, I'm on this whole business of you being despondent and depressed. I don't know how many of you are, but I'm telling you, the conservative media out there is they need the vapors. They're about ready to toss it in. You know, they live in this media bubble. They live and work in it. They consider themselves part of it. And they're totally, they believe every poll that comes out. And to the extent that you read them and access them, I just want to warn you, you're going to be hit with fatalism like you haven't seen before. And it can't be true. For example, Britt Hume said today that on Fox News, well, you got to keep in mind that a candidate who is ahead in the polls in mid-September rarely loses. Well, did anybody remember Carter and Reagan? It wasn't until the week before that election that the polls started showing the truth of that election. October 24th, 25th, 26th, 1980 Gallup poll had Carter leading Reagan by 3 among likely voters, 8 points among registered voters. Reagan ends up winning by 10 percentage points. So Gallup was off 13 to 18 points just a week and a half before the election. 2 weeks. Which shows to me how much Gallup wanted Reagan to lose. Incumbent Democrat presidents usually aren't reelected. You know, Bill Clinton is the only Democrat president to be reelected since FDR. Did you know that? Now, you might want to count LBJ being reelected as JFK's second term, but there obviously were mitigating, extenuating circumstances there. And LBJ did not run for a second term. He quit. "I will not seek, and I shall not accept the nomination of my party to be your president. Lady Bird and I would rather go back and kick the Beagles. Texas." Incumbent Democrats usually are not reelected. And I don't know, Clinton, 1992, if it weren't for Perot, who knows? Remember the Scott Walker situation in Wisconsin? What were they saying about the Scott Walker recall election against Tom Barrett before the election? If you remember, they were saying, this is too close to call. It could be that Walker's going to lose the recall. They were all up in the drive-by media talking about this. And yet Walker won with 53% of the vote. The loser, Michael Dukakis, had a 17-point lead over George H.W. Bush in 1988 after the Democrat National Convention. On July 26, 1988, the New York Times said this was among the findings of a national public opinion poll 948 registered voters conducted late last week for Newsweek magazine by Gallup. Telephone interviews took place July 21st, which was the last night of the convention. 55% said they preferred to see Dukakis win. 38% said Bush. 17 points. Bush ended up winning by 8. Jimmy Carter led Reagan by 4 points after his convention in 1980. If there's precedent here, it's not on Obama's side. On the campaign trail, President Obama constantly talking about the importance of technology, but he met his match in an iPhone yesterday. The president had stopped at a campaign orifice in Port St. Lucie to thank volunteers. And then for the cameras, Obama was supposed to call a couple of campaign workers who were out working on his behalf. When White House trip director Marvin Nicholson handed the president his own iPhone, Obama couldn't get it to work. A reporter witnessing the scene said the president looked befuddled, didn't know what to do with it. It's clear. Actually, it's not clear the president knows how to dial on an iPhone, the reporter wrote. Finally, Obama's, I got to dial it in. Hold on. I can do this. See, I still have a BlackBerry. And even after figuring out where the keypad was, he had a little bit more trouble dialing. The call didn't go through. He blamed Nicholson for having an insufficient cell phone plan. He never completed the call on an iPhone. Mr. Hip. The Washington Times is the only outlet to report this. The Washington Times reporter was the Pool reporter. They are the only outlet to report it. Drudge links to it, but nobody else reports this. Wonder why? I mean, the iPhone is clearly the it phone. I don't know if Obama knows what a checkout scanner at the supermarket is or not. And they eat everything Michelle grows in her garden. So I don't know how much Obama buys. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, just some of these samples here. Here's Politico, Jim Vanderhyde and Mike Allen. State of the race, advantage Obama. In fact, Politico pretty much calls the race for Obama in their piece. And this is what the conservative blogosphere is responding to. A lot of them are caving, crashing. George Will, go to audio sound bites yesterday on This Week at a Roundtable. Stephanopoulos said to George Will, that jobs report, that's probably the best news Republicans had in a couple of weeks.
On the basis of these numbers, the Romney campaign slogan should be the title of Paul Krugman's book, which is End This Depression Now, because these are depression-level numbers. And if the Republican Party cannot win in this environment, it has to get out of politics.
If the Republican Party can't win in this environment, it has to get out of politics. I'm going to ask the question again. If Obama wins, how long do we have, folks? I'm serious. Before economic collapse, before economic implosion. And what happens to the Republican Party if Obama wins? I think it's serious. The welfare state is collapsing all around us. I don't think, and there are people that realize that we can't go on this way. I'm not sure how many people realize how close we are to the collapse of the U.S. financial system. Because we can't, we don't have, we're spending $1 trillion we don't have on welfare. It's not that we're taxing producers and redistributing the money. We're borrowing it. We're printing it. We don't have it. Over $1 trillion a year. $5.5 trillion added to the national debt in 4 years, 3.5 years by this president. There just isn't the money for this. At some point, and it's sooner rather than later, there will be a collapse. And the Republican Party may end up being on the wrong side of it. And there's going to be a new Republican Party if that happens, and it's going to be led by Tea Party people. Everybody's going to try to blame conservatives, and they will have had the least to do with any of the calamity, if it happens, that does happen. And it has to happen, folks. If Obama's reelected, it will happen. There's no if about this. And it's going to be ugly. It's going to be gut-wrenching. But it will happen. The country's economy is going to collapse if Obama is reelected. I don't know how long. Year and a half, 2 years, 3 years. California is going to declare bankruptcy at a certain point. California is going to declare bankruptcy, and you know what Obama will do? He'll go to states like Texas or Arizona, Florida to bail them out. That's what he'll do. And that's going to precipitate this stuff. California showing where we're headed in every which way. There's two Californias. There's the rich, the elites, the liberals that do well along the coast. And then there's the interior. Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley, where it is falling apart. The glue that keeps the culture together in the interior of California is falling apart. And on the coasts, they're blissfully unaware. Where the wealth is pretty stacked, it's pretty high. So if you go to California and you spend time on the coastal areas, I don't see any problem here. You go to the interior, where much of what California does feeds the world and the country and so forth. You'll see it. But everything that is happening in California is slated is going to happen nationally, from the unchecked immigration to the massive indebtedness, inability to pay it off, rising taxes. And when push comes to shove, where are they going to go in California? They're going to go along the coastline where all the elites, suburbia, where all the money is, and they're going to start taking it. It's the only place there is any. California, Governor Moonbeam, not doing one thing to put that state's finances in order. Not one thing. Everything he's doing is making it worse. And the same thing is going to happen eventually. This can't go on, folks. We are on an unsustainable course. You simply can't pay people who aren't working. You just can't. You cannot pay them anything, much less full-fledged incomes, lifetime health care, and lifetime pensions. You can't do it. Even if you wanted to, even if that was your definition of fairness and equality. So you can't do it. The money isn't there. And you might be shouting, well, but don't these people know it? You have to keep in mind who these people are. These are people who don't like the way this country was founded in the first place, who think it's about time some of us found out what it's like to live in the rest of the world because of what we've done to the rest of the world. Kyle Smith, New York Post yesterday. Very interesting piece. Explains that Obama is hanging on because people pity him. They feel sorry for him. I'll share with you some excerpts. You're going to hear this. In the meantime, it's time for another obscene profit timeout, and we'll come back and we'll get started with your phone calls. So be ready. We'll be right back.